My grandmother told me the world would end in a year. So I spent the whole year praying and reading the Bible and alienating all my friends and relatives. And finally, the big day came, and absolutely nothing happened. Just another day.
There's a gentleman who emailed me, we've been having a discussion, and he's like, well, what sort of evidence would it take to get you to believe that a God exists? And I was like, well, it depends on what you're going to define God as, and I think there are certain, it's not like I have special criteria for the God hypothesis. I have pretty much similar, granted extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but it's no different than the sort of evidence that would convince me of any other thing. Tracy likes to point out that something either manifests or it doesn't. If it doesn't, it is irrelevant. If it is, then there's some sort of evidence that you can present for it. That might work. We've talked about messages in the sky that are simultaneously read by different people in different languages, independently verifiable, confirmable, that kind of thing. Martin's mentioned, hey, if a road to Damascus experience was good enough for Saul, it should be good enough for me too. I'd say that, if you believe in God and believe that prayer works, it should be pretty easy for everybody, all of you Christians, in addition to sending me money to watch your stuff until you're raptured, or after you're raptured, you could all get together and pray that whatever it would take for God to convince me that God exists, that God would do that. Because even if I can't come up with an explanation, an answer that's suitable, surely your God knows what would convince me.
That's right.
Are you saying that your God is so weak and feeble that he can't come up with some way to convince me that he exists? Am I just, I'm not worthy? My soul's not worth being saved? What's the deal here?
Well, isn't it also true that that there's some quote in the Bible that says if two of you get together and pray sincerely in my name, it'll come to pass?
Yeah. So, wherever two or more you
I think these Christians are just very selfish. The two of them can't get together and
pray for world peace. Yeah. Nothing fails like prayer. I don't care that you prayed and found your car keys. I don't care that you prayed and at some later time somebody benefited in some way. There's no evidence that prayer does anything. And if you wanted to prove different, all you'd have to do is get together and pray for God to do whatever it takes to convince me or somebody else. Pick somebody that's more important than me. Pick Don. Pick Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
Let's all get together, well, you guys get together, I'm not going to waste my time, but all you Christians get together and pray that whatever it would take to convince Richard Dawkins that God is real, that God would go ahead and do this. Matter of fact, if God's purpose was to actually convince people that he exists and loves them and wants them to join him forever, whisked away in the clouds to paradise and rapture, wouldn't convincing the world's most prominent, outspoken atheist, and wouldn't that be the perfect opportunity? And the reason I say that is because whatever it would take to convince Richard Dawkins, I'm pretty sure that he could go, come down here and express to me clearly what it took and what happened, and probably convince me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Richard's going to go anything short of evidence and reason, and I don't think Hitchens would, or Dennett, or anybody else.
Or us, for
I don't understand it. You've got Ray Comfort and others who go on TV and say, I can prove to you that God exists in 30 seconds, and then they give some BS argument that's nonsense, and then when you call them on it, they say, well, the other thing you can do, why didn't you start with this, is hit your knees and with all sincerity ask God to reveal himself, and he will. Well, what makes you think that I didn't do that? Do you think that in the course of the 25 plus years that I was a Christian and in that fading away period where my religious belief faded, that I didn't do that?
They're trying to use the no true Scotsman fallacy on you, right? You couldn't possibly have been a good Christian if you're an atheist now, right?
Yeah. It's impossible for anybody who was once a true Christian to be an atheist. Okay, I agree, because when you say you're using it as a false conversion, because I think all the conversions are false. I think you either bought into a delusion, or you've deluded yourself, or whatever. But this idea that we had never done that, or at least in my case, it's not like I just chose to be an atheist, or I got fed up with Christianity. I mean, my specific goal was to do what God wanted, or what I thought God wanted, was to fulfill the obligation that I had as a Christian to lead other people to Christ, to come up with the best explanations to convince the atheist. And what I found in the process of studying is that I couldn't even continue to convince myself. It is, the more you examine it, the more you actually care about what's true, the more you actually read the Bible, the less believable it is. Sorry, that's the truth.
That's been my experience. Yeah, the more I learn about it, the crazier it sounds.
My grandmother told me the world would end in a year. So I spent the whole year praying and reading the Bible and alienating all my friends and relatives. And finally, the big day came, and absolutely nothing